The third thing that I'd like to bring to you comes from Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 10 through 19. And this is family time with God, is an application time with God. Notice in verse 10, and it shall be when the Lord thy God shall have brought thee into the land which he sware unto thy fathers, and to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give thee great and goodly cities which thou buildest not, and houses full of good things which thou fillest not, and wells dig which thou diggest not, vineyards and olive trees which thou plantest not. When thou shalt have eaten and be full, then beware, lest thou forget the Lord which brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. And thou shalt fear the Lord thy God, and serve him, and shalt swear by his name. And ye shall not go after other gods, or the gods of the people, which are round about you, for the Lord thy God is a jealous God among you, lest the anger of the Lord thy God be kindled against thee, and destroy thee from off the face of the earth. Ye shall not tempt the Lord your God as ye tempted him in Massah. Ye shall diligently keep the commandments of the Lord your God, and his testimonies and his statutes, which he hath commanded thee, and thou shalt do that which is right and good in the sight of the Lord, that it may be well with thee, and thou mayest go in and possess the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers, to cast out all thine enemies before thee, as the Lord has spoken. And so we're looking at family time as an application time with God. Here in these verses, it seems to me that God's talking about living. The Christian life is not just about knowing, teaching, it is about living. Life is about doing. It's about taking God's word and then start living it out. Verse 10 and 11 speak to me about living. To me, almost every word and phrase here in these verses speaks to me about living life. What we learn from God's word should be lived out. I like to say it this way. Our doctrine should give us direction for life. What we believe in God's word should teach us how to behave as we live out our life. Verse 12 is the first time in which we're given a warning in this text. It says, "Then beware lest thou forget the Lord." Think about this. Oh, my friend, often we forget about the Lord. And, application helps us to remember where we come from. And so this is telling us, hey, mom and dad, teach your children what you used to be before God came into your life. And it's a good time, not only to throw out those warnings that we might forget God, like this verse is teaching, verse 12 is teaching, but it's a time to reinforce of why we do the things we do. Verses 13 through 16 teach us that God is a jealous God. So we must ask ourselves the question, is there any God, little g, God, in our family life or in our personal life in which God feels like he is playing second fiddle to? I could go off here and tell you that America has a lot of little g gods in their life, and Christians do as well. Be careful, be warned that the little gods do not take the place of the big God, Jehovah God, the God of the world in our life. Verses 17 through 19, to know is instruction, to keep is application. We need to know so we can keep. Keeping is application, so we will do that which is right and good in the sight of God. Verse 18, number 2, keeping is application that makes life well and victorious. Possessing the land, here it speaks of possessing the land of Canaan. Canaan land was a picture of victorious Christian living. Yes, they had battles and they had to fight these battles, but if they followed the Lord and the promises that he gave in his word, then they had the promise that God would make sure that they were victorious. And then finally, number 3, keeping is an application that will keep out the enemy. Verse number 19 tells us about casting away the enemy out of our life. Casting out all thine enemies. We need family time with God, because family time helps keep the enemy out of our life.